Samantha, did you tell me if you were able to test Jason already? Okay, so he's fine. Yes, on presentations after introductions, okay? Okay, that'll be fine. I'll take my mask off while I speak. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm Renee Bartlett, Council Member for District 5, and this is my first town hall meeting. And so I had been asked, how many people do you think will come? And I thought, I'll be excited if one person comes, but we have a full house tonight, and I'm very excited to get to host our meeting. And the topic tonight is Highland Drive and all of the projects that are going on. To my right is our Chief Engineer, Gary Chenoweth, and to my left is our Fire Chief, David Bailey. They're here to help make presentations and share information for you. And then attending via Zoom from Madison Utilities is Jason Leggett, and he is the Water Manager for Madison Utilities. So this evening, the way we're going to proceed is we're going to have a series of presentations to make sure everyone has the same baseline of information about the project. And then we're going to open it up for questions. We're going to let the live audience go first in asking your questions because we want to be respectful of your time and let you move on if you need to get somewhere else. If not, please stay for the entirety of the meeting. And then we'll move to the Zoom audience and we'll give them instructions in terms of how they'll get to raise their hand and ask a question. And so Jason Leggett will stay on for the whole meeting. And so Madison Utilities can answer a question, or Chief Bailey, or Mr. Chenoweth. When this meeting concludes, we're going to record this meeting and put it on our website. We're going to share key links to videos and the presentations that are made this evening. And we're also working on an FAQ page so that the questions that we've been receiving the most via email or this evening, we'll be able to share written answers and questions for anyone who is not able to catch the live stream or be here in the audience. So thank you all. And to begin, we're going to start with Jason Leggett, and he's going to do a presentation from Madison Utilities updating you on the water main project.
Thank you very much. So while we're getting the presentation in order, I'd like to start by thanking you, Renee, for putting this together. This is, I think, going to be a great opportunity for us to share our story, what we're trying to accomplish, the progress that we've made so far, our expectations moving forward, and our goals and the process from here on out. So obviously, we have a project that we are undertaking on Highland Drive to replace the water mains and other water infrastructure along that road and through the connecting roads on Highland. If you'd move to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the history and why we're doing this in the first place. So the water mains on Highland are made of PVC, and nothing necessarily wrong with PVC, but that is not the standard now. We currently have specifications that were adopted by the board, the water board, which now call for a ductile iron pipe. Those specifications were adopted, I think, in the late 90s, and a lot of the infrastructure along Highland was designed and installed over 30 years ago. I think it's between the mid 80s and the early 90s. So that's how we ended up with PVC water mains, which are fairly old and, according to industry standards anyways, and not our current specified or approved pipe material. And this all is really why we're seeing many of you have probably noticed main breaks along Highland, and those have increased over time. I did some research and found all of the work orders that we've generated for main break repairs. And a main break, just so you know, that for some of you that may be obvious, but that's the term that we use for what happens when the main pipe that's running along a roadway ruptures in some way. It's a leak on a main pipe that's at least 6 inches in diameter typically, that is bad enough that we have to treat it as an emergency and repair the pipe. Usually for PVC, it's a very large occurrence with lots of water coming out just because of the way that it splits longitudinally. So in the research I did, I found 3 main breaks that needed to be repaired from the beginning of our records until 2010. And then we had 8 more from 2010 to 2017 in those 7 or so years, and then 11 in the last 3 years. And many of you have probably noticed this. It's just continuing to increase. And so we have finally partnered with the city, with Mr. Schnawath, to make this project happen, because we realized, you know what, this cannot continue. It's only going to get worse. And the best solution is to just replace the pipe. So if we can move to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that and how that's going to continue. So there have been a few questions about water main replacement. What does that mean? Well, for us in the water industry, water main replacement is really a term that's used to describe any method of upgrading an existing water main. That can mean digging a trench alongside of an existing water main and putting pipe in the ground and then abandoning the other one in place. It can mean pipe bursting, which is another method, or you can actually line the inside of an existing pipe. There are many different ways to go about it, but all of these are kind of encapsulated within the umbrella of water main replacement. Methods that do not involve digging a trench are lumped under what would be called trenchless methods. And there are many companies, many different methods and different companies and manufacturers who provide materials for those, and they all have literature and marketing videos that make them seem advantageous for many different situations. And there are great uses for all of the different methods that are out there. However, for projects like the one that we're undertaking right now, they are not as advantageous. So each of these main breaks, that one of the reasons is because of the pipe and the situation that we have. Each of these main breaks that I mentioned before requires a repair that involves metal. So we have to either put a steel repair clamp around the PVC pipe, or we cut the PVC pipe and put a new section of ductile iron pipe in there connecting, replacing the part that broke. And this is very, very important for understanding part of why trenchless will not work. We cannot come in and burst pipe that is partly PVC, and then over 20 times along the way, they will run into sections of either a steel band or ductile with solid sleeves connecting everything. the bursting machine would have to stop and everything would have to be dug up in the process. Also, one of the big disadvantages is that we would have to maintain fire protection and water service above ground with temporary mains, and the
Did we lose Jason?
section lots digging around all of the service connections and at the streets and wherever we ran into metal. So I think there were some questions about that. I just wanted to help everyone understand the process and why this was selected. This is really going to, in our experience, this is going to result in the best product possible for everyone. So obviously the work has begun. The contract is scheduled to be complete April 28th. Unfortunately, the contractor is running behind schedule. And we have had a meeting with them. We have expressed concern about this, and they have assured us that more crews will be on site in the next week or two to catch everything up and get us back on schedule. As far as this first phase of the project, which we are considering from Eastview to Cherry, they are wrapping that part up as far as the pipe laying goes. As soon as the pipe and all the valves just south of Cherry Road are installed, the plan is to pressure test that pipe, make sure there aren't any leaks, and then go back and install all the services that are needed, do more pressure testing. We'll sample the water, we'll flush, we'll have to disinfect. We'll go through all of that process at a later slide. And then once everything is complete on that section from Eastview to Cherry, we will backfill, clean up, and lay any seed or sod, or lay sod or place seed where needed as needed. And so I just want to reassure everyone that the plan is not to lay pipe all the way down to the end of the street and leave everyone's yards a mess while they go back and work on the entire project. We've broken it up into phases to try to minimize the disruption to everyone's yards. So I guess we can move to the next slide. Now this was the part I said we would get to next, putting a new main in service, which means connecting the main to your meter and serving you with new water through the newly laid water main. Before we can do that, there are several steps that must be completed. And so I want to run through those just to help everyone understand that there is a process here for us to make sure that we have a quality product and that we have good water quality before we connect it to your house. So first, we fill the new pipes with water from the existing water distribution system. And then we'll have to do flushing from hydrants to remove any air and potential debris that may have made its way into those water pipes. They do try to limit that, but sometimes it's difficult to limit too much. Then we'll run a pressure test on the pipe to check for leaks, disinfect via hyperchlorination. So we put a lot of chlorine in there for about 24 hours. We let it sit, and that will burn off anything else that's in there. We flush again back down to a standard chlorine residual level. And then we take samples and have it tested for bacteria, E. coli, and that kind of thing. Once we get good results from our samples and all of the rest has been passed, then we will finally be able to connect the new services to your existing plumbing, which will be just a short water outage for each customer as they're connected. Next slide, please. So not quite at the close, but in the next to last slide, I want to make sure everyone understands the purpose here is to extend the life of the distribution system, especially on Highland, which is obviously beginning to fail. We want to improve this and extend the life and improve the quality of service for all of our customers on Highland Drive. And this will have many advantages, including eliminating these main breaks and service leaks that we've been seeing, especially in recent years. All of the yards that have been dug in will be repaired with seed or sod as needed to the same or better condition as they were. That is our expectation for the contractor, and we are going to hold them to that before they receive final payment. Road repairs will be coordinated with the City of Madison, and all customer concerns should be directed to our inspector or engineer. I believe you've all received a letter, and it's got all of their contact information in there. The reason for that is that they are documenting all specific concerns that will be addressed in a punch list with the contractor before they receive their final payment. So they are documenting everything, and we would really like to encourage all of you, if you have a specific concern, something related to your yard or something that you've seen that concerns you, you want to make sure it's addressed before the end of the project, please contact the engineer. His name is Craig, and he will make sure that that's documented and addressed. If you feel like you're not getting adequate response from them, or you're dissatisfied for any reason, feel free to contact me. My information is on the Madison Utilities website, but the engineer is intended to be the first contact for that reason. The next slide, we would just like to close with an understanding. Want to make sure that you all understand that we realize that this is disruptive to all of you, and we are thankful to all of you for your patience with us as we endeavor to complete this project. We look forward to getting the project completed on time, and we're going to try our best to hold the contractor's feet to the fire to make sure that you have a quality product and that your yards are in excellent shape when we are finished. We're going to have improved infrastructure as a result, and we're going to do our best to minimize the inconvenience to the best of our ability throughout the process.
Jason, thank you. I have one follow-up question before we move to the next presentation. I had a constituent write me an email who could not attend this evening, and she wanted to know how you notify residents when you finish at their section and you're done flushing the line. How do they know that then they need to run water before they, I think her example was she didn't want to run the dishwasher right when you had finished that process, and she wanted to know how you were going to notify her.
Okay, yes, that's a good question. So as I mentioned in one of the slides, before the water service is connected, the new water service is connected to existing plumbing, we are going to make sure that the water quality is very high. The water will be safe and will be clean and clear and of very high quality. So there shouldn't be a concern as far as bringing in contaminants or dirt or that kind of thing into the house. Now, as far as the water outage that may occur when we connect to the service, each customer should be notified before that happens. There isn't really a plan for notifying everyone at each phase as we're flushing, but there shouldn't be any problems with that process that would require notification. Do you think that might answer the question?
I think so, but we'll open it up later to see if there needs to be follow-up on that, okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Now, we are going to open up to questions after the presentations are all concluded, but I want to move next to what happens after the water main gets replaced. The plan that is on the website in terms of repaving. And the question that I've received the most via email is the suggestion of removing the speed bumps. Why are you removing the speed bumps on Highland Drive? Now, I've asked Chief Bailey to come here tonight to talk about that, because when Gary does plans like this, it's not like he goes in a closet and comes up with an idea by himself. He actually talks to other people at City Hall. And Chief Bailey, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you talk about what, how you view speed humps and how you talk to Gary about this project.
Thank you, Renee. So from a public safety perspective, there's really 3 areas that we look at in one of these big renovations. Jason spoke to one of them, which was the water supply. So for our fire flow, we're actually our fire marshals meeting monthly with the Madison utilities, and also a separate meeting with Limestone utilities to address where we do have low fire flow. And because mainly for Madison's example, and Limestone too, the main reason for low fire flow was these old mains in the street that we've got now. So just from a fire flow perspective, and as far as public safety goes, this is going to greatly enhance our ability to do business if one of your houses catches on fire. So we've gone through and color coded based on fire flow. So you see different colors on the tops of your hydrants now. And they're doing an excellent job going through and replacing most of the older ones. So this is going to greatly enhance our ability to fight fire in your neighborhood. So that's number one. Number two, and these are not in priority order, but number two, truly just for community risk analysis and community risk safety for your neighborhoods. Just like you are concerned about people going too fast, we want to make sure, working with Gary, that people don't go too fast. And I've worked with him since I got here about 4 years ago on several or a couple other neighborhoods as well. And I'm very confident in the traffic calming initiatives that he utilizes to prevent that. So I'm sure that, we're not going to have an undue hazard for children in the street based on, what he's going to do one way or the other as he goes down his priority list. So that's obviously another one. And third, can you show that one picture back? So third is we've been getting with them for a while on how traffic calming measures will affect us. So this is our largest, you can't see all of it, but this is our ladder truck, which is our largest piece of apparatus. And this is Gary working with one of our ladder companies to figure out what does a new traffic circles need to look like. This happens to be one of the bigger ones, but we also, that same day, were with him with the really small ones. And he's got a great deal of experience and understanding about how he can set up traffic calming so it will prevent the speeding and at the same time not prevent us from doing business. The speed humps are very detrimental to that piece of apparatus and really cause us to have to replace it because of the damage that they do to the rear end of it as we go to especially to fires or any type of medical emergencies that piece of apparatus does have to go to sometimes. So we've got a short video that talks a little bit about, it's about 4 minutes long, that speaks a little bit about big trucks and traffic calming. So we'll watch that and then I'll finish up real quick.
As the region grows, so does its traffic volume. In turn, this increases pressure on our transportation systems. Slowly, neighborhoods have become relief valves for traffic congestion, with cut-through traffic commonly exceeding speed limits. One solution for this increasing problem has been the installation of traffic calming measures such as speed humps. While traffic calming measures are effective at slowing traffic to some degree, speed humps pose a particular problem for emergency vehicles.
this is one of our main response routes here, and they have put in speed bumps over the last year or so, and this has significantly increased our response times. And unfortunately, this is during a time where there's sort of a renewed emphasis on decreasing our response times. You can see how I have to slow down to go over this bump. So it essentially becomes just a matter of hard acceleration with hard braking to basically get to where we want to go.
Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue needs to get to neighborhood homes as fast as possible. However, speed humps cause an estimated time loss of about 9 seconds per hump. In some cases, this can mean the difference between life or life-altering consequences.
Oh, absolutely. Seconds can count, and it can seem like longer to the person that we're responding to. You know, it may take us 30 seconds or 60 seconds longer to get to their residence or business to meet their needs, but it can seem like hours to them.
If, say, you're not breathing and your heart's not beating, every second is brain tissue. So the longer it takes us, the chance of survival drop.
The bottom line is some traffic calming measures can come with a price tag.
So the cost essentially is that we've got to build fire stations closer together, or the citizens that are putting in the traffic calming devices as a trade-off, as a risk-benefit trade-off, have to accept slower response times.
Yet some calming measures have proven to be more firefighter friendly. These include curb extensions, chokers, medians, pavement texture, street trees, and speed cushions. These types of measures do not slow emergency response significantly and can provide a winning solution for neighborhoods and emergency personnel. The key, interagency partnerships that employ traffic calming measures while minimizing negative impacts on emergency response agencies.
Thanks, Sam. So in summary, and it didn't talk a lot about the roundabouts, but the other things, there's another video actually that you can watch. Awesome.
Don't worry, we're not going to make you watch. Okay.
There's another video you can watch about traffic for truck aprons in roundabouts. And that's what we have been working with Gary on, is to create that type of effective calming for your neighborhood that will keep people safe on the streets and keep speeds at appropriate measures. And at the same time, because it's a truck apron that's engaged in the middle of that traffic circle, we can go over it without having to slow down a lot. And not the standard traffic circle that's not built that way is going to cause us delays equal to the traffic humps or more. We're working with Gary. They're going to be the aprons that you'll see if you go to that video. And so we're very confident that our fire flow is going to be greatly enhanced with this project, and people will be safe, the speeds will be right based on traffic calming, and we're not going to be, it's not going to be detrimental to our responses or our vehicles. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. In our final presentation, we're going to have Gary talk about our city's traffic calming policy, talk to you a little bit about the roundabouts that he has planned, and take you through the map of what he would like to see happen on Highland Drive. And then we'll open it up for questions. And for those of you who walked in late, we are going to load all of these presentations online, so you don't have to take pictures of them or anything. And we're going to have this video available to you also. All right, Gary.
And first, Samantha, can you pull up the GIS map on top of that one? And if you could first go to that location on County Line Road, Joe Phillips Road location. I came here in 2005. And at that time, the only traffic calming that was permitted were speed humps. And it was actually a speed hump policy. And what you see up there on the is a couple subdivisions. On the upper level toward the center, you've got, I think it's Lexington subdivision. You've got Freedom Way and Honor Way are the main roads on that subdivision. And they go straight back for a half a mile. It's a very long straight shot. When I came here, Freedom Way already had speed humps installed. And what happens with speed humps is people don't like driving over them. And so what happened is, in order to get back to those back homes, residents were making a left turn going on Honor Way, and they were speeding down Honor Way to get to the back of the subdivision. So shortly after I came here, Honor Way, we're getting speed humps. Once we locked up those two roads, in order to get back to that back area again, they started bypassing both roads using Joe Phillips roads. And Joe Phillips ended up getting speed humps. By the time we got the speed humps on Joe Phillips, which is in the 2009 timeframe, the fire department chief at the time threw up his hand and said, "You got to stop. You just cut off my last exit or my last route going back to these people." And we began to work with the fire department and HEMSI and the police department, trying to find out what are ways to calm traffic that don't involve speed humps. When speed humps were first started, they were a great way to slow down traffic, but the unintended consequences weren't considered until they were well established, and many of them were put in the city, and that goes all over the country. And when emergency response became an issue and equipment damage became an issue, other traffic calming features became developed. And we can go to the PowerPoint now. We rewrote the traffic calming policy in 2010. And in 2010, with the cooperation of several departments, this policy was accepted as our new standard that we've been applying to new requests for traffic calming. Actually, some of these requests go into some new subdivision designs. And even when we resurface roads, we apply these standards to resurface the roads that currently have speed humps. These snippets are actually part of the traffic calming policy that you can pull up and read the whole thing online. But what I want to basically go over real quick was that the traffic calming is only considered for local streets. Commercial or major streets are not included in those. Those streets are intended to pass high volumes of traffic at a good rate of speed. And so the traffic calming was pulled down to just the residential streets. There were a lot of requests to put traffic calming on Hughes Road, for example. We had to address those all the time, and we settled it with this policy, and it's been adopted. Yes, please. I can't make this picture work. When you get a concern about speed and you want something looked at, the first thing we do with this policy is we ask you to report it to the police department. You can report it, let us know through the website, you can email us, you can do it however you want, but the first step is law enforcement. And if they are not able to properly bring the speed down with enforcement, then they will ask us to look into options for reducing speed. First thing we will do is we'll get a speed survey established. At that time, the police department was the only one that had equipment that could give what is called the 85th percentile of speed. And all engineering reports to establish what is a safe speed limit is based on what 85% of the drivers tend to drive because you inherently want to drive at a safe speed. And that still means you got 15% that are a little more adventurous. So if he's not able to reduce speed through enforcement, we do the speed survey, and traffic calming is warranted if the 85th percentile of speed is 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And this 10-mile-an-hour limit is pretty much standard across the country if you pull up traffic calming policies in different cities. And at that time, the police would do the survey. They would forward a result to us and ask us to come up with a solution. Since that time, the police department has lost their equipment. We've upgraded our equipment in the engineering department, and we now do the speed surveys when they request it. The next slide. When we get the request, we will look at not just where the speed request is being asked for, because we look at a whole subdivision and the network of roads, that if we do something to slow down traffic on one street, we don't want drivers to automatically go off somewhere else and cause problems in another location. So we will typically do speed surveys throughout a subdivision, and we will establish a baseline of where the traffic is and what the speed is. Before we make a change, we'll determine what we feel is the best route of reducing the speed. And once that is implemented, and we have time for traffic to stabilize, because we're all creatures of habit, we tend to drive a certain route to go to a certain location. If something changes in your traffic pattern that you want to take, a different route, it takes a couple months to come up with a new standard traffic and pattern, and we'll do follow-up speed surveys on that at that time. And we will evaluate at that point whether or not what we have recommended works or not. The variety of traffic calming available is listed up there. That's not all inclusive, but we have used always stops before. We have not used traffic circles yet. We do have lane restrictions in place. We've used lane narrowing. We've used speed cushions. Speed humps are still there, but the policy states that'll be the last option that we would apply. Could we go to the next slide, please? When we apply these different options, we will apply what is the least restrictive in order to accomplish the task of bringing speed down to the acceptable level of speed. When we do our follow-up speed survey, if we've not accomplished that, we will then go back, consult with the groups, see what else we can try, and we'll implement another feature. But in these follow-up investigations, sometimes we have discovered that a problem has developed. We have pushed an issue off to another location, or we've actually increased speed. And we will then reserve the right, according to this policy, to actually remove those traffic calming features if we are in fact causing more problems than we were trying to correct. A lot of people like always stops. They think that's the sure way of stopping traffic. But if a driver feels he's being stopped just for that reason, they tend to speed up in between. And we do have one location where an always stop increased the speed by 5 miles an hour. And so we don't look at that as the first option anymore. We had one site where we put a lane restriction in the center of the road. The residents wanted a speed hump, and they were very upset that we didn't put a full speed hump in, and we just put a sorry little thing in the middle of the road. But the follow-up survey indicated it dropped speed 3 miles an hour. They weren't happy with it. They wanted a speed hump. They asked that it be removed. We removed it. And we did a follow-up survey after that, and speed returned to the 3 miles higher than it was before. So it did work, even though it looked so benign that you would regard as ineffective. But anytime a driver perceives that they're having to thread a needle and come into a smaller area, they tend to slow down a little bit. And that's what that restriction did. And recently, especially on our collector roads where we have an accident problem due to speed, we started using radar signs where they watch the approaching traffic. If you're going over the safe speed, the radar sign will flash to you to slow down. You're going too fast. We did this on Shelton Road where we've got 2 90-degree turns in the road. We had 2 different attempts to slow down speed that was causing accidents in that location. We super elevated the road to meet spec. That actually made people drive faster. And accidents increased. And then we put the radar signs on it, and it dropped the accidents down to a very low level. Some of these radar signs are programmed to mark how fast you're going. And what we found is that some drivers, especially the rookies, want to see how fast they can accelerate. And so that created a problem. So we had to reprogram the signals that it didn't flash what your speed was. It just simply told you were going too fast. Next slide, please. We are beginning to move toward roundabouts. That has become a very effective way of moving traffic. We're looking at it both in our major roads as well as our neighborhood streets. On the major roads is where the primary emphasis is, and we've got one under construction now and one is out for bid. This particular roundabout is in Athens, Alabama on Lindsay Lane at Nick Davis Road. It's been in place for about 15 years. I drive through it every weekend. I've been through it with heavy traffic. It's a very effective circle. It is designed for a 2-lane road in both directions. I don't know if any of you have been through that, but if you're concerned about how a traffic circle feels, that would be a good one for you to go test drive. Could I get the next one, please? This is an engineering drawing of the traffic circle that is out for bid now at Gillespie and Balch. And one thing I wanted to point out that the green circle, if you drive that Lindsay Lane and you feel how comfortable it is to go around that, the center circle at Lindsay Lane is 50 feet. The center circle for this one that we're going to be building in on Balch and Gillespie is 60 feet diameter. We're a larger circle. The concrete apron in Athens has a 70-foot diameter. Our concrete apron on this particular one is 92 feet. And the inscribed circle or the asphalt surface that's available for traffic to circulate within the roundabout is 110 feet in Athens. We're at 132. So the larger the circle, the larger the capacity, because you stack more people within the circle and it provides more gaps for you to enter in between cars that are in the circle. The next one, please. I had to do some searching to find a mini roundabout. And this particular roundabout is at First Avenue and I forget the other. It's in Decatur. And it is put inside what would be an existing traditional size intersection where you've got two-lane roads with current 35-foot radiuses on the outside, and they fit this small circle on the inside. This particular one has the same dimensions as what we're going to be putting on our residential streets. The difference between this one and what we are doing is that is a landscaped raised curb interior that fire trucks and large vehicles would not be able to maneuver very well because their rear wheels would hit that curbing and it could cause damage in addition to delay. And what we'll be placing in the circle, if we could get the next one. This is a schematic of what we're proposing. And this particular one is Miller Boulevard at Highland Drive, where we're squeezing Highland Drive down from a 3-lane to a 2-lane approach. Miller Boulevard is already 2 lanes at that point. That inner circle will be a concrete slab that trucks will be able to drive over. So when the fire truck has to make the roundabout, make that left turn, the rear wheels can track into that concrete center without any real bumps on the equipment. It's intended to be a visual, small bump in the road that keeps cars from speeding straight through. And we want them to slow down and make the turnaround. And this will be a standard on our mini roundabouts. And this roundabout, it was designed to a federal mini roundabout standard. So it meets the federal requirements. And one point I do want to point out is that our mountable circle there is only 34 feet in diameter. The inscribed circle that you'd be able to drive around that particular roundabout is 70 feet. And for those of you who drive on roads with cul-de-sacs on them, our typical cul-de-sac has an edge of pavement that's 76 feet. And so I know in my case, if I'm driving my car, I can make very comfortably a turn around that cul-de-sac, even if there's cars parked in in the edge. And I've seen the semi trailers comfortably make a turn within a cul-de-sac. So this is almost like setting a cul-de-sac inside this intersection with a little bubble in the center. The next one, please. Our approach, you want me to go the approach?
Sure, go ahead.
With us taking the speed humps out of Highland Drive, and we wanted to also take out the all-way stops on Highland Drive. In the time that I've been here, and all of this was in place when I came here in 2005, we get constant complaints from unnecessary delays, damage to cars and vehicles because of the bumps. Brenda Drive residents in particular have complained on a fairly regular basis that traffic is being discouraged from using this road, and they're using Brenda Drive, and they're speeding on Brenda Drive. And so we wanted to, when we resurfaced this road, we wanted to put a traffic calming back that would allow continuous flow, but at the same time slow the rate of speed down. And what we've done is elected to use both striping and roundabouts on this one. The striping will be similar to what we've done on portions of Portal Lane here, where the 3-lane road unstriped tends to be a drag strip. And if you paint the road, there's parking available on both sides. We'll paint parking stripes. You pull the 3 lanes into a 2-lane, you channelize the cars. They tend to drive slower because of that. And we tried to, in addition to that restriction of the lanes, every 800 feet along this road, we've tried to put some kind of feature that would make a driver make a decision to have to make a shift in this direction. On the top left-hand corner, that's the intersection of Highland Drive at Eastview. Currently, that's an unstriped intersection. We're going to be placing a 3-lane striping, so there's a designated left lane and a right lane on this intersection. Once a driver comes off of Eastview onto Highland Drive, once he passes that 3-way striping, the striping brings him into a closer 2-lane road, and that slows them down. And by the time their 800-foot run is over, he hits the first traffic circle at that T intersection. We've got less than 800 feet to the next intersection where we have a traffic circle. Down in the bottom toward the center, you see the second traffic circle. And then off to the right of that circle, if the text gets out of the way, you'll see a lane narrowing where we expanded the road out again to 3 lanes, but we striped out the center of the road. And again, so that takes them from the inside, moves them out to the outside, back to the inside. And that fairly benign movement slows traffic. Can we go to the next one, please? As we continue down on the top side, you'll see another roundabout at an intersection. Down on the bottom left, you see another lane narrowing in the center of the road. Then we hit at Miller Boulevard, another roundabout there. And the last slide, we've got the roundabout at the first cul-de-sac as you come off of Old Madison Pike. And again, as you go to Old Madison Pike, we've got the 3-lane striping for the left turn and right through and right turn lane. Drivers entering the collector roads are used to driving 40, 45 miles an hour. And sometimes when they first turn onto those neighborhood streets, it's a little hard for them to realize they're still going 40, 45 miles an hour. And so with this lane restriction happening within first 500, 600 feet of the turn, the 3 lanes coming back down to 2 lanes as you're going northbound will tend to slow people down. So that is our approach toward this. Once this is implemented, we don't sit back and just assume everything's wonderful. We wait for traffic to stabilize. About 3 months after this is completed, we'll go in there with the traffic tubes and we'll recount traffic. The tubes are out now. They were put out sometime last week, and we'll be pulling them soon. I wanted a full 7-day run on these tubes, and they'll be run a full 7-day test after the fact as well. And we'll compare it and we can report what the differences are.
Okay, so Gary, probably the most emails I've received about the roundabout plan, when people heard roundabout, they were thinking of what's at Providence, Maine, or what you're planning for Balch and Gillespie, but really what you're talking about are mini roundabouts.
There are many roundabouts, they're much smaller, but they do force you to slow down as you go through that intersection.
Okay. So are we ready to take a pause on the presentations? And you've got some other slides in case you might need them for certain questions. Is that correct? Okay, so what we're going to do, and thank you for bearing with us through all of this information because we wanted to make sure you knew exactly what was planned. We're going to open this up for questions. Now, this is a town hall. This is not formal at all. You don't have a time limit, but I'm going to ask you to be respectful so that everyone who's here who wants to ask a question gets to do that. We're going to start in the live audience here in the room at City Hall, and then we will move to the Zoom room. So those of you who are here, one thing I would ask you, if it turns out you have a question, but you don't really want to ask it in a public meeting that's being recorded, we're going to hang around afterwards and we'll take your questions privately if you wish. But for those of you who are asking questions, we'd like for you to focus on the issues of Highland Drive. I've heard some people very excited about having a town hall. You may have questions of all kinds on other city issues, but because we're recording this for informational purposes for those also who want to go back and look at it and those who missed the meeting, we want to focus our questions to either our engineer or also Jason is still on at Zoom via Zoom from Madison Utilities, or Chief Bailey, or myself. So anyone, you can, any order you'd like here, I'm going to take live audience questions. So if anyone would like to come to the podium and ask a live question, I welcome you to do that now if we're not clear about something or you're curious about something we didn't cover in the presentations.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just for Zoom people too, so.
Yeah, the Zoom people can hear you, although sometimes the mask impedes. I don't mind you taking it off while you speak into the microphone.
So my name is Gil Olive. I live at 132 Wellington Drive, which is a couple blocks off of Highland Drive. So I guess I was excited that, again, like you said, we were having this so we could kind of, learn what's going to happen and kind of see the details. I guess I'm going to try to be discreet. I'm an engineer, so I apologize. That's by choice. But I guess a couple of red flags that comes out to me is that when you talk about the speed reductions, you didn't talk about the traffic volumes. I feel like and this is a personal opinion, I don't know if the data is there to show this, is that people are kind of trying to cut through this neighborhood. Like you described, I think Liberty Knoll or the Liberty neighborhood. So that's not a cut through. People are trying to get to the back of the neighborhood. But what I thought was interesting is that people were definitely dodging speed humps, right? Finding different ways. And we're talking about taking them out. And this isn't just a get to the back of the neighborhood thing. I feel like there's a little bit of a floodgate that can open here where people are trying to cut through from Madison Pike to Eastview, especially with as bad as Slaughter can get at times. So I feel like that's a really big red flag that needs to be considered, is not just the speed reduction, but also the volume. I have 5 children. I don't live on Highland Drive, but if I did, I know my biggest concern would be, even if you reduce speed by 3 miles an hour, but you quadruple traffic, because then the floodgates open and people are making that cut through now, that you've quadrupled the chances of my child getting injured potentially, if that makes sense. I also drive a Ford F-150, and what you just described isn't technically a roundabout. It's more like a big kind of circular speed hump in the middle of the road. And if it's not required to go around that, I'm not going to be going around it. I mean, I'm going to go through the middle. It might slow me down, but I worry about the people who are really concerned about really speeding through. Those are the people you're really concerned about, right? And I don't think they're going to slow down either. So I'm a little worried about that, and that's a red flag. And I know you'll have limited space, right? You have my empathy there. You can't put a big one in, right? You got to do something small. But I'm also concerned about if things are slowing, or if things are easier for a fire truck to get through, things are also easier for the people we're worried about to get through, right? Those things go hand in hand. And again, you have my empathy. I know y'all got to deal with that, right? But those are just some red flags. And then I guess one that I learned just now that I didn't really know about was I heard about striping, right? I was worried that we might turn this into Portal Lane and like have the parking. And a lot of HOAs go away from that, and our neighborhood's really pretty. And like, I don't want to make a parking lot out of it. But then you described sending cars kind of closer to driveways, right? So even there's a little bit of a speed reduction, but now they're right on the edge of driveways where children and, you know, pets and things can be. Even if it's a 3 mile an hour speed reduction, again, if the volume's 4 times as much, you've just quadrupled your danger there right at the edges of the driveways. And people tend to stick to the middle, right? So that danger's not there today. So I don't know if that's a question, but it's just a bunch of red flags I heard, and I'm very concerned. And if I lived on Highland Drive, I'd probably be more concerned. I don't. So I don't know if I don't have the most popular opinion here, but I know that's what the things I would be very concerned from a parent with a lot of children. So anyway.
Okay, thank you for sharing those observations. Gary, are there anything you want to address in what you heard just now, or?
It's hard to address concerns of what might be. We've not experienced traffic coming. Traffic's not going to drive there just because we took the speed humps out. They got to have a reason for going there instead of the route they're using today. And when I first got here, Farrell Road into Research Park had not opened up, and all of the traffic was coming Slaughter, Old Madison Pike, and then coming to Old Madison Pike, and then they were going up Highland Drive to hit the Eastview location. When Farrell Road opened up, traffic on Old Madison Pike dropped. Traffic on Eastview dramatically increased, tripled on parts of Eastview. And so we're not anticipating a shift in traffic. Where you may see a shift in traffic is within your own neighborhood, where the people on, if they are bypassing this and going down Brenda Drive, they might be going down this road instead. So yes, there will be a change, but that's why we do follow-up surveys. And again, we don't do something to increase the speed without checking. If it increases speed, we're going to do something about it. As far as traffic volume goes, it's a public street, and we can't restrict traffic on a public street. You have the right to travel on any street in the city. And so what we're doing is providing as safe a travel way as we can for all drivers. And it looked like it was those two main issues.
Sure, and you have a count now. You know how much traffic's going there. So one of the first things you're going to do is monitor after these mechanisms are put in place. If they're not working, as you have said, if you notice it's increasing traffic or increasing speed instead of slowing down speed.
We'll be able to report that difference.
Right, and so we'll be monitoring that. But thank you for those observations. Anyone else from the live audience, please come on.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Johnson. Thank you for opening it up for us to come and ask questions. One word I haven't heard in this meeting tonight is the word pedestrian. I am a 28-year resident of Cherry Road. I walk Highland Drive every day with my dog, and I walk all through the neighborhood. One of the nice things about the neighborhood is its walkability. There are children that walk to Horizon Elementary School. Their children walk home from Horizon Elementary School. And I'd just like to know what you've done as far as pedestrian safety. You know, if you walk the street during the busy times of the day, how will pedestrians cross that traffic circle? I was looking this morning as I was walking my dog, and when you come to the four-way stop at Cherry Road, and like I said, I live on Cherry Road, so I watch people run that all the time. Maybe the traffic circle will be the same thing, I'm not sure. But, you know, it'll stop them from running stop signs. But I don't see how traffic circles work for pedestrians. Now, at least, when we come to that stop, if someone sees a child with their parents or a child on a bicycle or an old lady walking her dog, they'll stop. And often they'll motion you through. With a traffic circle, there's no stop. And I didn't see any walkways. I'm familiar with the Lindsay Lane traffic circle, and I think that's a whole different area than where we're talking about here. This is a residential areas. So if you could just address safety for pedestrians, I would appreciate it.
The crossing location at a roundabout is at a different location. As this water main goes in, they are taking out a lot of the old curbs, and they are being replaced by this contractor in the locations to accommodate the roundabout. So the crossing point would be a little farther back from the intersection, and you tend to be away from that intersection. So you still have just the one street to deal with when you cross instead of two different streets. We're providing the access the way the national standards call for it. I'm not aware of any study that would indicate a roundabout is causing problems with pedestrians, except for the very, very large multi-lane roundabouts. But on the city streets, there's only 1,500 cars a day running this street right now. That's a very low traffic volume.
So Gary, if I'm understanding what you're saying in response to Ms. Johnson's question, on your GIS map, does it show where the new pedestrian crossings would occur that are different from where the intersections
Not
are?
yet.
Okay, but could we add that? Would that might help at least see where that pattern is? That's a great question. Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jamie Koshifer. I'm at 130 Wellington Drive.
Yeah, you've emailed me.
I am.
Okay.
In point to that about moving the crossing further down from the roundabout, that's just going to make people, I think people are just going to ignore that crosswalk that's further down. They're still going to take the shortest distance across. So I think they're just going to ignore the crosswalks that are further down. You're still going to go from point A to point B and just go straight across. So I feel like moving those sidewalks and crossings further down on each section of that roundabout, I just don't feel like it would be used, especially by kids. And that also goes, I'm going to kind of highlight Gil's point at 132 Welling Drive, my neighbor. I do feel like it's going to increase traffic as soon as you take those speed humps out. I think it's just going to open it up. More cars are going to be on the road. And that's a road that we use a lot from a bike perspective. I also agree about the pedestrians, having concern about the pedestrians, but also the bike riders. My son and I go on bike rides all the time from Wellington, using Highland Drive to get to the IGA for slushies. But I didn't see any bike lanes, bike paths, or anything. As soon as you put those parking spots there, you're going to push the bikes further into the road, and you're going to have less safety for the bikers as well. Highland is used by walkers, riders, joggers, bikes. So it's a heavily used road by the residents of Highland and the surrounding neighborhoods. So wanted to hear if you had any plans about bike paths or bike lanes, how that's going to incorporate into the plan for Highland Drive. And if you incorporated any other speed reducing systems like the cushions or the cobblestones, were those considered instead of roundabouts? And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the road was not wide enough to put a dedicated bike lane in there. Most riders, it's a fairly lightly parked street. And most riders, and I think most runners, are running along the curb rather than running in the sidewalk. So they can actually ride in the area where the cars are parked. So it's a very wide road. There's also a concept called complete street, where streets are designed for vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic. And there's a perception that you have to provide a different lane for each mode of transportation. And you don't, because the complete street designation is providing a street that does not have so much traffic volume in it that it's still safe to walk on the streets and ride on the streets. My particular subdivision has no sidewalks at all, and I'm in Stave Mill Estates. People walk in the street all the time, kids play in the street. I'm not aware of a problem. And so there, oftentimes in meetings like this, when something is about to be changed, there's perceptions of what's going to happen. And we've not seen those fears come to fruition. When I drive Highland Drive, I think I see more people on the road walking than on the sidewalk. And if you're a runner, I think the preference is to run on the asphalt rather than concrete. And really nothing's going to change. You're going to have a striped area that's designated for cars that you can walk right in. I'm not saying don't worry about it, because otherwise I'm saying you don't have a valid concern. I'm just saying that we've considered these. We've seen them in different locations. The Portal Lane striping has worked. It did slow traffic down. And some of the people that complained that speed was too much, I've seen them walking at night with their baby in front, dad's pushing the buggy, mama's in front with flashlight, waving cars away from the baby, and 10 feet away from them, there's a sidewalk that they could have walked on. We can't design for people who aren't going to follow the rules. If they're going to walk across the crossing of the road, regardless of where the crossing is designated, I can't help that. If you're going to drive over a traffic calming feature and ignore it, I can't help that. One person said we shouldn't be putting roundabouts in because people don't know how to drive. And if they don't know how to drive, they won't be able to handle it. And we can't design for people that don't know how to drive. So all I can say is that we're following the standards, and we're going to be doing follow-up studies afterwards. And if something is wrong, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind we're going to hear about it. So we're not going to ignore it when it's done.
Why did you select the roundabouts as opposed to the other options that you could have put in?
We're trying to do something that's quickest and the least expensive. We know we're going to mill that road down when we resurface it, and putting the concrete on that milled surface is a fairly easy thing to do. The brick pavers are very expensive. They're very expensive. The other option, the speed cushions, we get complaints on speed cushions. We've got them in a couple locations. The residents don't like it because the bigger trucks, the ones that they're most worried about speeding, can actually drive through them without being bumped. So the speed cushion is a series of bumps that has a gap between them that a fire vehicle can drive through without slowing down. And that unfortunately means all big trucks can drive through it without slowing down.
Do you have any safety data on roundabouts and pedestrians and bikes and other things that you can support that roundabouts are safer options?
I do not. I do not.
Because then you're just trusting your thoughts as we are trusting what we believe a roundabout will do to our neighborhood.
I agree.
And roundabouts, for me, I think are going to increase traffic and increase the danger for kids riding bikes and kids walking and jogging and other pedestrians as well. So that's just where our stance is.
I understand.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else?
My name is Catherine Norman, and I don't live that far from Miller.
I want to bring your mic down a little bit.
And Gary, I know you probably have, but have you done a cost benefit analysis on this versus stop signs versus traffic light?
No.
Okay, why not? Or is it that y'all are just going to do this anyway?
When we resurface the road, we're going to take the speed humps out. That's routine. And so far within the city, we've not replaced speed humps in any location.
Okay.
Now, on this particular one, because it's a 3-lane road, we're going to go back with something. And we feel that if we take them out and not put anything back, there will be a speeding problem. So we're putting in something that is the least restrictive that we can come up with.
But not necessarily the least expensive. Because I'm just, tax money, where's the money coming from, that kind of stuff. And then also, how long do you intend for this to interrupt the daily flow for the people that live in the neighborhood? How long is this going to take?
This is a paving project that would probably take from start to finish a month. Our biggest problem with paving projects is that we are piggybacking on the Madison County paving contract. And sometimes they get pulled off on emergencies. And I think we saw that on Brenda Drive recently where they were scheduled to go in and then they stood down for what seemed like 4 or 5 months before they came in again. So you may see a start and stop, but the road won't be closed and it'll always be open to traffic during construction.
And my last question, which, dittos some of the other things that the other neighbors have said, is have y'all really asked if this is what the neighborhood, and I'm talking each and every person that lives there, if that's what they want?
No,
Or,
no, what we're hearing from email messages is it's about 50-50.
okay, and then my last question would be then why do it? And then, I understand the safety and public safety and this, that, and the other. It's just, check in with
Why
the
put anything
citizens
back?
first.
Why put anything back? I mean, the speed humps are coming out. The speed humps are the last option.
I hate speed humps, but
And
anyway,
so
so
it's-
I understand that.
They're coming out. We've got to do something to make sure that we maintain a low rate of speed on that particular road.
Well, I'm one that follows the rules. So if there's a stop sign, I will stop. But, it's just, I was wondering about the cheaper options and, ask questions.
So you're wondering about stop signs as opposed to the roundabouts? That's what
Exactly.
you're
Much
asking for
cheaper.
cost. Okay,
Much cheaper.
all right, we've got it down. Thank you. All right, anybody else? in the
One thing while the next one's coming up relative to cost, just to let you know that ladder truck's more than $1 million. We try to get 20 years out of a ladder truck because of the cost and its special services that it provides. The more speed humps we do have to go over throughout the year, that duration of length that we get out of that ladder truck goes down to close to 15. So that, not just speed humps, obviously, but just one cost benefit piece.
Thank you, Chief.
I'm Sue Allen. I live on Springwater. I have 2 boys that run distance for Bob Jones. They're always in the street. My husband is in the military. He runs up and down Highland. He's always in the street. I'm completely in favor of the roundabouts. I might be the only one here. So I just want to let you know that. I always walk in the street. You probably see me with my dogs. And so I know that the last person had mentioned the stop signs. And I thought I had read somewhere, and I thought maybe you kind of touched about it tonight on why that's not necessarily a good idea, because psychologically people feel that if they have 5 stop signs, they drive faster in between. So is that one of the reasons? And I've seen it with my own eyes. They might not break the speed limit, but they're accelerating at a greater rate of speed the way it is right now. Is that one of the reasons that you didn't decide on stop signs and decide on the roundabouts?
We don't use stop signs anymore as a traffic calming feature, because what we have found is they only work when the all-way stops are on a steep slope. Instead of not riding your brake down and speeding as you go down the hill, you force them to stop as they go down the road, and that it works there. But if it's on level ground, all-way stops just irritate the drivers and they speed up.
So it wasn't necessarily cost about the stop signs, it's because it's not.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I was just going to ask, I'm Terry Johnson. I was just going to ask a really quick question. You were talking about once you get all this work done, that it'll be like a 3-month wait on the traffic patterns, and then you'll measure. And I hope you have some data from before COVID, because in 3 months, I think there's going to be a whole lot more traffic on Highland Drive and on every other street in the city because people are going back to work. And I know you've got those ropes across Highland right now measuring the traffic, but do you have some data from a year or 2 ago?
We've got traffic calming or traffic counts that go back 15 years.
Okay, yeah.
So we do have volumes that we can compare the volumes.
Great point, Dr. Johnson. Thank you. Anyone else from the audience?
Hi there, Jocelyn Brower. Thanks so much for having this.
Sure. Thanks for being here. Absolutely. I've got a question from a friend and then a question for myself. A thoroughfare is a main road in town. Why and when, this is from my friend, why and when did the city of Madison decide that Highland Drive should become a thoroughfare instead of its current status as a residential road with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit? Was that the goal, or to make this more of a thoroughfare?
We are not changing the designation of this road. We're not changing the speed limit on this road. And if more people drive on it, you know, they're going to have a purpose for it. It's not because the designation has changed.
And it'll stay 25 miles per hour.
25 mile an hour.
Okay, great. And as a mom, I'm always worried about the kids getting to the buses or getting to school. This is near a school as well, correct? I live off of Hardyman Road, so I'm just worried about in the future. That's why I'm just interested, because what happens here may happen to me off Hardyman, where there's a roundabout planned as well, and the kids run across the street as there is. If the traffic is moving, was that the goal, to keep it moving, or the main purpose is to just keep the speed down low? And where will, you know, if they have to walk further to cross the road, can we consider raised pedestrian crosswalks and flashing lights? A real purposeful place that could be, you know, we may need to spend some more money, but that may be worth it to keep the safety of the kids trying to get to school.
The raised crossing is really just a speed hump again. They'll call it a speed table, but it has the same impact on the vehicles as a speed hump does. And that typically would be put in a high traffic pedestrian area. And according to the engineering standards, high traffic is a number that we don't meet anywhere in the city of Madison. It's more of an urban setting, but
would you consider flashing lights that are solar powered at some point?
Well, but where would you put them?
Wherever the kids, where a main crossing place would be for them to get from one side of the street to the other.
We would have to see the traffic pattern that would justify that. And if we see a high traffic count like that, then we would go to other means, like we will come up with safe routes to school so that children can walk to school with as much safety as we can reasonably provide for them. And that includes crosswalks and such. But it's different for each location, and it's highly dependent on the number of people walking. If you've got just a few walkers, the drivers don't notice them. They don't recognize them. If you've got a lot of walkers, the drivers tend to be aware of them and react more positive. So when you look at those two balances, if you have a low pedestrian activity, you've got to put the safety on those pedestrians to cross where it's safe, and not expect a driver to be looking out for you, because they typically don't in those low use areas.
Well, and as pedestrians, you say adults, whereas now kids are going to be like little, you know, they're smaller, even harder to see.
All ages.
And it's not always about the money, right? I mean, sometimes we pay more for things that we think are very important.
Absolutely. It is regard to safety, of course. Yep. Thank you. Thanks so much. Anyone else have a question? And Madison Utilities is also on the line. So if anyone has anything about that, Jason's still there.
Thank you for letting us participate in this meeting tonight.
Thanks for being here.
My name is Keith Gray, and I live at 486 Highland Drive, and I'll be there this June 29 years. So I haven't seen anything, any repaving or anything done to Highland Drive in that length of time. And Lawrence Circle is just about dirt right now. So I welcome the renovations, the changes you're making. Sorry about being nervous.
That's okay.
But I welcome the water. Now, the reason you see so many people run on Highland Drive, and you see mothers with strollers and all in the roads, is because of our sidewalk deterioration, because of the main water line breakage all up and down Highland Drive that still are gravel. And your traffic counter. Yes, they come out last week. They put it in my front yard. So, and I'm one of them that's got a busted sidewalk too. And let me tell you, there are a lot of kids, there's a lot of parents that walk up and down Highland Drive, going to school and going home from school. Now, our traffic problem, when we got those traffic humps, we had a mayor of Madison that had them installed. He lived at the end of the street. So that worked really good. We still have young adults. We have teenagers that fly up and down the road. We have some of those that got the car so low on the ground that when they go over the hump, they have to turn it diagonally to go over. So these are just some considerations too. I'm not complaining, but there are unlevel places like a couple inches difference. So when senior people walk, when mothers walk with their children or stroll, that's the reason you don't see them up on the sidewalks all the time. So I just wanted to clear that up so you look at that too.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming.
I would like to point out that if there is a sidewalk issue, and I'll say unrelated to Madison Utilities patching where their main breaks, if you have a general maintenance item reported on madisonal.gov, let us know, and Public Works will put that in their queue and fix it.
Appreciate it.
Very good information to share. Thank you, Gary. All right, anyone else in our live audience who has a question or comment?
Good evening. I'm Pat Carter, and I live on the north end of Highland. So I'm one of the first houses as you come on off of Eastview. So this has been going on in our yard since January, but we are so appreciative that we are having this new water main put in. It is needed, and we do appreciate that. I do have a concern that's a safety issue, I think, and I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm not a contractor, but and not only in my yard, but in some of the other yards, I do see large holes, deep holes, being left open for a long period of time, in my case, since January. That's no netting around it. And I have seen children climb, not in my yard, but in other places, climbing on these mounds of dirt. And I have a concern that kids are going to fall, our pets are going to fall down in these holes and injure themselves. And I just wondered, I am very, very glad to hear that we are going to be in the first section or that we're going to be getting covered up soon, because I had been told that nobody would be until it was over with. And that was a great concern to us. So we appreciate that. And I look forward to that happening soon. The other thing, Chief, you might can answer this for me. Just I need some clarification. We've lived here for 20 years on Highland Drive and love the neighborhood and the people who live there. On the north corner of our lot, we've have a fire hydrant. And we have a new fire hydrant now, more in the middle of our lot. And I just wondered, why was it necessary to move it from, I'm sure there's a reason, from the corner to more in the middle of our yard? If you could answer that for us.
So I don't have a clue. No, I'm just, Jason may be able to answer that better as far as for us, it's distance. And I'm not sure if that would be the only reason I would know that it would need to be, we only have so much distance between hydrants in neighborhoods or in general, but I'm not sure. Jason may have a better understanding about why that was moved. It may have been based on their pipe size or pipe length or something like that. Jason, do you know?
Okay.
You may have to unmute him.
If you email me your house number, I can forward that question to Jason and see if he can answer that question. And I'll have my address up. Hey, Jason, you may not know the specific hydrant that is in question that has been moved, but do you happen to know why it might have been moved from the corner to the middle of?
I mean, you're talking 20 feet,
15,
15 to 20 feet.
20 feet.
Yes, I don't, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't know the specific hydrant off the top of my head, but I do know that I don't know the reason, but I do know that the hydrant spacing along Highland in general was more than what is required. We generally need to see 500 feet between hydrants. And we had a few that exceeded that. So we actually moved some hydrants and added some hydrants to make sure that we had adequate spacing.
That's probably it.
Okay.
Jason, Gary, all of the existing hydrants are on that PVC main. They'll be taken out afterwards, won't they?
Yes.
And so the new hydrants are being hooked to the new main.
Yes, sir.
Correct. And then as far as the hole, I would like to say that that is a concern, and I'm glad you mentioned that. That would be something you could call our engineer about, or obviously this one you've let us all know, and I will definitely have someone
Right. And
go and look
one of
tomorrow.
them is around the new hydrant, and the other one is where they've installed the new water meter,
Where they've just dug it up.
and it's just been left open.
Okay, Jason, so are you calling the engineer or am I?
I'm actually just going to start with having one of my employees go and look, and I may look myself
Very
first
good.
thing tomorrow.
All right, we're going to get to that.
But
We're going to get to the hole. All right, thank you.
yes,
Thank you for bringing
our
that. to our attention.
standard, just so you know, our standard is that there would be safety tape or netting or something around the holes. Yes,
Absolutely.
that's not what we would allow.
Thanks, Ms. Carter, for letting us know. All right, anyone else in the live audience? I see one more, okay? Zoom audience, we're going to have all your questions asked before we ever get to you, so hang on.
Council Member, Chief, sir. My name is Greg Curtis. I live on the north side of ECU. From 1992 to 2000, I sat in District 7's chair as council member, except for 2 years I sat in the middle. So you can blame us for your speed bumps because we did it in 1998 as the pilot project. And in January of 1995, Dr. Quinn from UAH came here, stood right here in the middle of the council chambers, and presented the benefit of roundabouts. And I brought him in, and we brought him in to talk about why we could do it, because the city was exploding, booming, even from 11,000 people. And I don't want to say I was laughed off the podium, but I was damn near laughed off the podium because roundabouts are something they do in England. I worked in England and I knew they were efficient. They're more efficient, they're safer, they're less expensive, and they're safer if you have an accident in one. Because if you have an accident in one, allegedly you're going in the same direction. I applaud putting roundabouts on Highland Drive. I can tell you, Highland, you've been there 29 years. District 7, my district was north of ECU. District 5 was south of ECU. That tells how the city has changed. Now you have all of us. Down where you're at, I can tell you, Highland was a racetrack. People flew down Highland Drive. I applaud. I mean, the speed bumps. You're exactly correct. We heard that 22 years ago. There's a compromise in there that I keep. You know, you're putting a mini at Ashley and you're putting a mini at Lauren. The minis don't slow you down too much. I see concern and I hear concern that you're still going to have speed, at least getting to Cherry. You know, Highland is 4 blocks. It's Cherry, Springwater, Miller, Eastview, to Mad Pike. You've got a problem especially in those center sections. Is there a compromise in there? You know, the Ashley one and the Lauren one, they're the three intersections versus the 4. Where's Mr. Pickup Truck? Mr. Pickup Truck is good, you know, he's not going to go over the hump, but that thing's going to be very easy. But between Cherry and Springwater, and between Springwater and Miller, you've got a problem slowing it down because it is a speed. And is there a compromise with some sort of, maybe instead of 2, there's 2 in each section, maybe 1 just between those center sections. Yes, there'll be some slowing with Ashley and Lauren, but he can still get to about 80% of the people without having to go over a speed hump. If you just put them on those 2 in the middle, because you're going to come off of Mad Pike and you're going to come off of Eastview, and those in the middle, most of the people, most of the things are going to be before you get to that speed hump, because all these turnoffs to Wellington and all these turnoffs to Brenda and everything else are going to happen before you get between that segment at Springwater and Miller and that segment between Springwater and Cherry. So maybe there's a compromise in there that is worth looking at, because I applaud the safety and the changing of that dynamic. I mean, no one stops at the speed stop signs on Highland Drive right now. But if you go without having something to really slow them down, they're going to go even faster. It's not going to slow it down. And I appreciate your calming comments, sir. But I think, you know, there could be a middle ground there. I applaud what you're doing. Maybe there's a middle ground in there, because just that little segment, just the dozen houses right there heading to Springwater may be something that could also save everything else in the speed of the whole thing. So that's my comment, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Going what? Oh, one more. Okay. We have one more in the live audience. Hang on, Zoom.
Hi, my name is Joe Forrest, and I'm at 505 Highland. And I've been there since 1987. I've seen it all. I've seen it grow. I've seen Madison grow from 1,400 people to what it is today. And I've got a friend of mine that lives about halfway between where I do and Cherry. And I've seen people reach 50 and 60 miles an hour on Highland Drive. And when they come to Miller Boulevard, they slam on the brakes and I hear them. And I appreciate your comments about being a compromise somehow or another to slow it down. And I see people all the time. I see the police sitting at on Miller Boulevard trying to catch people going through the stop signs. I see the police down close to my friend's house trying to catch people speeding, coming around the corner. So I think there's some common ground to be found somewhere to get that speed down between those four blocks.
But you're talking about speed in its current condition.
I'm talking about if you pull those speed bumps out, there will be speeders.
So you're talking about speed before the humps went in.
I'm talking about before the humps went in, and there's still some that goes on today.
Okay. Looks like we need to watch Miller. Thank you. All right. So have I gotten everybody in the live audience who has something? And I also want to, okay, we're going to take one more, and then Samantha's going to put up my email. So if there's anybody who just wants to share with me their opinion on their take on what they've heard tonight, I'd love you to email me, because I will forward that to Gary and to Jason in terms of what's going on. But I want those of you who have a question for these experts here to get to have a chance to ask that. Okay. So hang on, Zoom room. All right, go ahead.
I'm Kathy McDaniel, and I live at 493 Highland Drive. On the city engineer's website, there is a map with proposed roadways, and one of those roadways connects Highland Drive to the curve in Shelton. And I was just wondering if that is something that is a current project that we should look forward to in the near future? And if so, is that a project that's being taken into consideration with the Highland Drive repaving?
That is an old street plan study, I think in the 2001 timeframe. It is most likely not going to happen because where that road was supposed to go south of Old Madison Pike, there's currently a school there. And so that opportunity disappeared when the school was built. There is a plan to extend Portal Lane long-term up to Old Madison Pike, but it will be west of the drive, about halfway between Highland and Miller.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna now allow the people who are waiting on Zoom who have a question. So here, I'm gonna give you a few instructions so you know how this is gonna work. Because we have made this less formal, being a town hall, we did not ask you to reserve time. So we have automatically muted everyone. So what you're going to do is raise your hand if you have a question. But if you just want to weigh in on I like this or I don't like this, I'd like you to email those responses to me so I can be respectful of everyone's time. But those of you who have questions who are in Zoom, if you raise your hand, Samantha is going to ask you to unmute and let you ask your question. And I am going to preempt while y'all are figuring out whether you really have any more questions or not. I did receive by email some questions from Mr. and Ms. Coe. I just wanted to let you know that they had some zoning questions on Highland Drive that I forwarded to Mary Beth Foran, who's our planner, and the nature of the questions were this: is Highland Drive currently still zone R1A? Yes, the property on both sides of Highland Drive are zoned R1A. The question was, will the city of Madison change Ashley Estates or Chadrick zoning in or near the future? Answer: the city does not have any plans or proposals to change zoning in these areas. And if so, will it include commercial, enterprise, or high density? No, nothing like that. So I wanted to go ahead and answer those for Mary Beth, who's not here tonight. And then any other questions in the Zoom room, Samantha, we're going to take you one at a time. And hopefully you were able to hear well enough with the microphone the questions that were already asked. So Samantha, are you asking anyone? Does anyone have their hand raised?
I'm not seeing any raised hands through the Zoom option. Just if you haven't worked Zoom before, that option is down at the bottom. If you want to ask a question on Zoom, go ahead and press that raise hand button. But so far, I'm not seeing anyone with any questions.
Okay, we're going to give you just another minute.
Here we go. We've got one.
All right. Okay,
This
so
is
she's
Tara Bailey.
Hey there. Thank you for doing this over Zoom and for doing it in general. I think it's really great that everybody's at the meeting there to speak and everybody's looking at the meeting through Zoom. I live on Ashley Way, so I'm right up the road from Highland Drive, and I have 3 children. And I think roundabouts or not, I think there's been good conversation tonight and a lot of questions have been answered. I was thinking about communication wise and how there are a lot of children that do play on that, play on the road. There's and as far as educating, is there something we could do to help educate the children on the road about how the roundabouts are going to work? Maybe even have a sample of like what it'll look like by just even spraying some spray paint on one of the roundabout areas and having just a little exercise where you can teach them like this is the proper way to cross for a roundabout and just make them feel a little more secure in having that process done.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, Gary and I were talking about a video upload to show people what it's like, how to manage it, and of course, adding instructions for kids in terms of how to cross. Gary, do you have anything else you want to add? It's a great question.
She mentioned a good thing about spray painting something on the road.
Yeah.
So that I think we can arrange that with Public Works to go out there and paint some of this on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Tara. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah. And I think also taking a walk down Highland Drive during maybe 3 o'clock. I drive down Highland Drive quite a bit. So around like between 2 and 4, there seems to be a whole lot of people out walking. And I just think, for the people that weren't here at the meeting tonight and that may not just be clued into what's going on, just a simple walk down the street and talking to people on the road and just kind of seeing it from their perspective too would be, I think, helpful for everybody in leadership. So, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right. Do we have anyone else who has a hand raised in the Zoom room? While we're waiting, I have to thank everyone in the audience who came out tonight. This has been very instructive for me. I've taken notes on what everyone has had to say, some great suggestions. We're going to confer and we're going to work on that FAQ page. So hold on just one second. I'm going to see if I've got anyone else in the Zoom room. I'm going to let Samantha scroll up and down to see if anyone else, you've been patiently waiting. And so I really appreciate you being so patient.
We've got a David Coe. You should be unmuted now.
Okay, Mr. Coe.
Yes, I live on Highland Drive with my wife, Jennifer, and we were wanting to know if there are any plans to move the sidewalks or add another sidewalk to the areas of Highland Drive which don't currently have a sidewalk, or if there are any plans to widen Highland Drive since it's now been designated a minor collector road according to the Transportation Master Plan.
There is not a plan to widen the road, and there's not a plan to add any more sidewalks to the road. It won't be on both sides of the road.
But the sidewalks that are there remain. I think
The sidewalks that are there will remain.
Okay. Is there another question, Mr. Coe, or is that it?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is that it in the Zoom room? I want to make sure I've got everybody. And again, you can email me if you think of something afterwards. Just want to make sure I get everyone a chance to ask a question for Madison Utilities or for the City of Madison. Okay, I think we've got everyone in the Zoom room. Thank you, everyone who is watching via Zoom. I appreciate you. And
We've got Mara, who should be unmuted.
Mara.
Yes. Hey, I am sorry to bust in on this, but I do have a friend who lives off Highland, and she has sent me this message. She is not able to log on to the Zoom. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. So my friend Gail Cooper has ask about phase 2. Is the deadline still associated with the April deadline for those that are on the other side of Springwater? And I hope you understand what that means.
Is that for Jason?
That's for Jason.
I believe it is for Jason with Madison Utilities about phase 2 of the project. Is it still the April deadline?
I think in Jason's presentation, he said that was the expected date, but they've fallen a little behind and they're adding some additional people to help get that moving.
Okay.
So I think he had addressed that in his slide presentation. And if Gail missed it, we're going to load that slide presentation separately so she'll be able to see exactly what he had for that.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for this.
And Jason is unmuted if he needs to follow up with anything.
Jason, you got anything else on that?
You pretty much covered it. I would just clarify that the April 28th date is the date for completion for the entire project from Eastview to Old Madison Pike. That's not obviously a guaranteed completion, that we just have to see how well the contractor is able to work from here on out, but that is the goal.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and is that it for Zoom room, Samantha?
So far, it looks like it.
Okay, all right, Zoom room, I'm going once, going twice. If you need to raise your hand, this is the moment, because I've got a few people I have one person who's raised their hand in the live audience who wants to come back, but I'm going to give you a chance to ask one question first. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. So Samantha, you have been doing an outstanding job. She is running Zoom. She's running admissions into people who want to see the meeting and muting and unmuting. Thank you. Okay, so we're leaving the Zoom room, and I see that you have a question. We're going to have a returned comment questioner.
I guess one of the things I was thinking about listening to other people's comments is I might have made some assumptions about the roundabout design. So I want to ask one more specific question about that. When I think roundabout, like I think a curved middle area, but just to be clear, I think the way you describe the roundabouts or the mini ones you're talking about, they're more or less, just correct me here, is like a big circle of concrete that's just slightly elevated in the surrounding asphalt or other concrete, correct?
That's correct.
It would be much lower in elevation than the current speed bumps that we have there today.
We were wanting, much lower.
Okay.
And we're going to lower them more than what we would want to accommodate the fire problems.
Okay.
There will also be painted splitter islands instead of concrete splitter islands as you approach it. That'll be painted. And what we typically do is if drivers do ignore it as you drive through the paint, we put raised pavement markers on it. And if that little bump doesn't work, then we put the large ceramic markers on. When we gradually get bigger until they start, start following the lanes.
The half moons or whatever you kind of see.
Our concrete islands.
Yeah. Okay. And I was at risk of people thinking I was gonna be ramping through the neighborhood, but I just don't want to,
I figured you were the 60-mile-an-hour guy.
That's right. Yeah. And it wasn't clear in my head. So I appreciate you clearing that up. And by the way, she's doing an amazing job. I agree. I do Zooms all the time at work and she's doing an excellent job.
Okay, and that's Gil, the speeder in the truck, in case you didn't catch him the second time. Okay, anyone else in the live audience? Have we answered all of your questions? We're going to hang around for just a few minutes afterwards, but we're going to conclude this town hall. Thank you, everyone who made this a great success. I am thrilled to have this kind of turnout. You all were so kind, and we're working on the questions. We're going to post more information after this as soon as we can get that up. And you've got my email address. You can always email me. That is the best way to get a quick response or get direction to where we can get you a response. And thank you, Zoom audience, as well. And with that, I'm going to adjourn our town hall. Thank you.